Angela Means, welcome to your first one-on-one with Comedy Hype.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's just take the story back before we even came into Hollywood. Who was Angela? Where you were born and raised? Where were you?
I'm a foster kid. I'm a farm girl. I was born in New York to my mother found out later in her life that she was actually a genius. And she was the first enormously, I wrote this on her death date was about 3 days ago. And she was the first enormously talented person I ever met. She could do anything. Um, and I'm from her. She lived fearless. She was one of them independent women, and she raised me that way. And but she was trying to do a lot of things at once. I was born in New York, Jamaica, Queens, and she was doing a little bit too much. So she sent me to her. Her sister married into this huge family that were owners and farmers, and she sent me to the farm when I was about.
And this is New York.
Then she sent me to the farm when I was about 3 to Milan, Michigan, little farm town right outside of Ann Arbor. Go Blue. I grew up in the Bo Schembechler era, and I am a team player. So the team. He coined that phrase, and I just left my team and just just said that. Um, so I was raised in Michigan on a farm, and I was raised with I was raised in um, a big family that all lived on the farm, and we worked the farm, and I learned the concept: if you don't work, you don't eat, and I learned it literally. I mean, we did everything from livestock to I mean, it was a 200-acre farm, and
Yeah. I was wondering, at what point did you know your mother was not in the picture from a traditional standpoint? You were 3 years old, so how would you have, when did you take notice of like, okay, where's mom at and that dynamic?
um, my mother, yeah, she was a free spirit. She didn't give people too much explanation. She did what she wanted to do. But because of that, Jimi Hendrix said something very interesting. Jimi Hendrix said something very interesting. No one put fingerprints on his brain, so he was able to do some of the more creative things that he wanted to do, and he was able to explore. And the same with me. Nobody put fingerprints in my brain. No one was. Um, that's a double-edged sword because you lack guidance. You lack how to navigate your emotions. Mentorship. The way that I was raised, I was cattled along. Okay, you go over there, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. Well, what about this? No, we ain't worrying about that. What about what about my college? What about my future? We ain't worried about that. We worried about right now. We got to get you to 18 and get you the fuck out of here. So that's how I was raised, and I knew that I was raised to um, take care of myself. No one was going to take care of me, not even my family. Nobody was going to take care of me but Angela. And I stand on that, and I work really, 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 really hard. Everything I've ever done, I've put that mentality into it. Nobody's got your back. 50 Cent said the same thing. And both of us are from Jamaica. Who I'm gonna call? I have no one to call, so I'm gonna call me.
At the time, was being fair skinned and mixed kind of a conversation in the environment that you grew up?
Absolutely. Um, a lot of my cousins were fair skinned, but I was the one with the more white features. My father's white. So, and I was the one with no siblings. I was the one with no parent. I was in one. I was in one, and it's funny. I end up as a stand-up comic, and that's what a stand-up comic is called. You're in when you do stand-up, you're in one. So I was destined for that. I mean, my birthday is 11/19. It's all those ones, and 9 is completion. 9 is it's the strongest. So I'm leading with all these ones, and 19, that the common denominator of that is one. So coming up, it was hard, but it made me. It put that, like we were talking about earlier, it put the chip on my shoulder that I felt like there was something I had to compensate for. It's like I felt the target. You do. You feel the target as a little kid. I started feeling that target like around 8 or 9. Then I started feeling the target, being a target from family members. This farm, a lot of families just dump their kids on it. So when a child is not supported, they don't necessarily know how to support, depending upon what happened to them. So I was in a group of kids who had just been through it. So they sent me through it because I didn't have anybody I had me. But they couldn't send me through too much because I was a big kid. I hit 6 feet at 13. So I was big as fuck. I was just a big girl. I was athletic. Uh-huh.
Now that's somewhat of a, an experience that we've heard before. Some people at the time or even now feel that there's a privilege that comes with being fair skinned. So how did that ever come up for you? Where it was like, maybe your fair skin was a way for people to treat you differently, or you know.
Um, I didn't feel any privilege where I was from. I'm from a little farm town full of black folks. Nobody, as a matter of fact, I feel like I was treated worse. I remember my cousins telling me, I was like 6 years old. You have to cut your hair. You have to cut it. I'll never forget it. And to be accepted. I want to be accepted. Just like, um, a black girl in an all white school. She wants to be accepted. So now I'm this, and it's so funny. I had to tell one of my workers, you know, sometimes mixed people are treated the way our sisters are treated by non sisters. I'm trying to say something without saying it. I don't want to get in trouble. But sometimes I'm not given a chance because I remember this girl posted something on my page. She said, "We just want you to admit." Admit what? Do you know what my story is? Do you know that, okay, let's take it all the way back to the field nigga and the house nigga. Do you know what was happening to her?
Mm. Getting raped in the house?
A dude said she was happy about it. She was in there. She was called a bed warmer. Um, she was getting physically abused by the wife because this man wanted her. So now she's a target, and um, she can't be with her people. She's been separated this way, so now her people are looking at her like she may be feeling a certain way. But everyone wants to belong somewhere. Everyone innately, we're pack animals. We need one another. We need community. We're social. We're social beings. And when you're ostracized because of the way that you look, it is very confusing. It's very harmful, but it's also, um, for me, it led me to wanderlust. I got up off them dirt roads as soon as I got up off them motherfuckers as soon as I could, and I didn't look back. They could say, she went out there, turned her back on the family. Well, guess what? I followed my bliss. I'm self-made. I I took I took all of that and I made something happen. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other because I didn't have anything holding me down.
So how do we get from the farm to Hollywood? Like, how does that even happen?
All right, so what do we do? I was 24 years old. I was It was a very well sought after model in the Southeast. And I worked all up and down the Eastern Coast. From New York, I worked, L'Oreal was one of my clients, Jean Paul Gaultier was one of my clients. I walked for Paulina Trugere, I walked for them all. I was very comfortable in Atlanta. I was a big fish in Atlanta. I worked every single day. Every single day, I was on the fashion page. I was in W every week, and I was very, very comfortable. And I was rolling with a group of young ladies one night. We were clubbing, and we stopped by a friend's house. It was like 8 of us, and we was rolling deep in the pack. And she said, "Hey, there's a fortune teller over there." And I was like, "Okay." So we go over there. She telling some people's fortune. They paying her, and we getting ready to leave. And she looks at me, and she's like, "You." And I was like, "I ain't giving you no money. I'm not giving you no money." She said, "You're gonna be one of the most famous people in the world." And she said it very melancholic. She said, "Fame." Ooh, I got chills. I'll never forget that lady. She said, "You're gonna be one of the most famous people in the world." And I was like, "I still ain't giving you no money." And then she looked, and everyone was looking at me. And she said, "And you're gonna do it twice." I still ain't giving you no money, y'all. Let's get to Mr. V's on Camelton Road 3 years ago. And I will say, I take that back, about 5 years ago, I sat straight up in bed. A big time rock and roll manager chased me down the street in Hollywood. I forgot the artist that he managed, but it's a big artist. "You know how famous you are in the UK? Come to the UK." And I was like, wow, I done shot this company around the world. I did it out of a donut shop on Crenshaw and 29th. This has got to be one of the most famous. I did it twice.
Right.
Because you cannot tell me that Felicia is not one of the most famous characters in cinematic history.
Fair. I would definitely say is up there because of the phrase itself, and that I want to definitely will dive into that. So, what was that first gig that you did when you eventually started working outside of modeling?
So there was a club called the Atlanta. It was called. It was in Atlanta, is where I started. And it was called the Comedy Act Theater, and there was a lot of comics who grew. That's where Jamie Foxx got his legs. Jamie Foxx got his legs at the Comedy Act Theater. Chris Tucker got his legs at the Comedy Act Theater. So many of us um, are indebted to the Comedy Act Theater. Michael Williams, who created the club for Robin Harris. And when the club in Atlanta, he had the club here in Leimert Park, and then he ventured to Atlanta. Another incredible black city full of progressive black folks who wanted that kind of entertainment. That was already, the face was there. I mean, oh my God, it was so popping. It was so popping. The Comedy Act Theater, and it opened in I think it was like 89. And the I went in, I ran into one of my friends, and I was a real comedy groupie, and I ran into one of my friends and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna do the open mic at the Funny Bone. Come out. It's there, da, 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 da." She was like, "No, no, 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 you ain't gotta do all that. Come. We opened up a black club." And I was like, "What? What are you saying?" She was like, "We open up and I'm the manager. So wait on all that. Just come on down, and I'm gonna have you meet the owner." I was like, I cannot believe this. About a week later, I go down. I'm just coming from a show. I literally, and I got on the model uniform. I'm looking like a model out of a Robert Palmer video. Literally, the big red lips, the hair slicked back. And I walk in there, and I got on my black mini skirt, my black pumps, and literally just walk right off the runway into this club he's building. And he, he looks me up and down like, "This bitch doing?" So I come in, and I come to be a comedian. Yeah, yeah, I'm funny. "Well, have you ever done comedy?" "No, no, no, I've never done it, but I'm funny." So he's like, "Well, look, we don't need no comedians right now, but we need We need waitresses. I was like, a waitress? Man, I just walked for 2 hours ago. And he was like, well, listen to me, hear me out. So you'll be able to see everything. If you really want to do this comedy thing, I want you to study it. Like you gotta study what you're doing, and everyone's gonna come through here. I want you to look at the comics. I want you to get you your comedy notebook. You got a comedy notebook? No, but I'm smart. I had every excuse in the book. So he mentored me, and I took the weight job, and I ended up like really helping develop everything because I'm a worker. I'm a worker bee, and it was nothing for me. And but that first week, every night I would go to him. Can I go on? Can I go on? And Joe Torre opened the club. It was Joe Torre. Who came with him? AJ Sanders. Joe Torre, AJ Sanders. And it was another like just hard hitting comic, and then the local comics, Jonathan Slocum. I mean, these shows were so hot, and everybody who was anybody was coming out in Atlanta. I mean, Dominique was hanging, Spud Webb was there, all the sports, anybody in sports was there, and it was incredible. It was one of the most incredible times and errors of my life, and I think that it was my hugest growth from bright-eyed, bushy-tail to myopic, savage beast with a goal, and I could see it. Okay, all right. So now all of this stuff, we're gonna put it all together. This is it. Okay, we're here. And this man, Michael Williams, he mentored me every day. Pulled me aside. Hey, let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk. So the last night of opening week, it was it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and show was closing out. I was like, hey, let me get some time. Let me get some time. He looked at me, and this dude had a different date every night. Like Lucas, like, oh, it's a different girl. I ain't gonna say shit. And he said, yeah, all right, go on, go on. And I know in his head he's like, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. So I went to Joe. Joe was hosting. I said, hey, put me on last. And he was like, the f you talking about? Put you on. And I'm like, no, Michael, look, Michael. Right, right? And Mike was like, put her ass on. Joe was like, all right, I'm gonna put your ass on. So, all right, you next. Like, let me at him. Joe goes on stage and is like, okay, this last comedian ain't a motherfucker in here ever heard of this mother. I don't know if this bitch is funny. And I was like, oh my God. But we're gonna bring this motherfucker on stage. Hey, what's your name? I was like, oh my fucking God. So I go on stage and I can still feel it like it was yesterday. I go on stage and I look out into the crowd and the light blinds me. So everything is dark and there's just this light. And you can hear this, I can hear all the sounds, the tinkering, a little mumbling, um, the blender in the back. I can still hear it. It was late. People were laughed out. People were drunk. A couple more asleep. Um, um, couple dudes was trying to come up for the night. Remember them talking. I was trying to get them to pay attention to me. And I did this joke. It was horrible. And then I just did a whole bunch of cussing. I just was, look at this shit, goddamn, and I bombed. So I asked somebody for a cigarette. I was like, anybody got a cigarette? Somebody gave me a cigarette. And I could see my hand. It was like, he was trying to light it. So I was like, okay, let me get off stage. Thank you, everybody. My name is Sally Mae Johnson. Have a good night. When I got off stage, everyone just repelled from me. They all sounded like Charlie Brown's mom. I didn't even go back and get my purse. I literally, because I always keep my car key in my pocket. I literally walked off the stage, walked out the door, got in my car, and bounced. So I was coming the next day. So I came the next day to let him know, hey, you're gonna have to get you another waitress. It's obvious I'm not a comedian. He's like, well, go on in the office. He said, now tonight when you go on stage, I want you to think about a couple of things. I was like, no, man, I ain't no comedian. I'm not going on stage tonight. I'm not going on stage. He was like, no, you're gonna go on stage tonight. You're gonna go on stage tonight. And what you're gonna do tonight is I'm gonna put you on stage before the host, and you're gonna start welcoming everyone. And then you can comment, oh, nice red pants. Did you, you can, that's where you're gonna start. And I was like, dude, no. He's like, well, I'll tell you what, either you go on stage tonight or you're not welcome back here. That's what I said. I was like, wow, that's extreme. Like, no, I mean, I was like, it was the hottest club. That's where everyone was. So I came back, came back, and I was just as bad. And I'd come off stage and he'd be right there. Okay, now this. I want you to do this. I want you to think about this. I want you to look at this comic. Now go look at this comic. Look at this comic. I got this book for you to read. I want you to write a joke every day. And the one thing that I want you to remember always, if it's funny to you, it's funny to them. You just have to convey it. And when it clicks, it's going to click. And when it clicked, I was on stage, so I was the opener for the MC. And I really didn't have to be funny. I just had to be energetic. And I could try my little jokes here and there. And if they didn't work, I could bail and say, okay, tonight, your host tonight. And one night there was a chick sitting up front, a sister, and her arms was crossed and she wouldn't look at me. And I was trying my hardest, and it was breaking my heart, she wasn't looking at me because I didn't look like her. Because I had the white daddy. I didn't have the beautiful black daddy. So that she didn't want to look at me because I ain't had the beautiful black daddy. So I said, you okay? And she's like, you talking to me? And I'm like, you okay? You not, you enjoying the show? Not really. And I was like, oh shit. I said, I know what you're thinking. I know exactly what you're thinking. What am I thinking? Look at her. Look at her. She thinks she cute. And they got some giggles. And then it just came out of nowhere. I do. And then I went into a little modeling thing, and it was really, really funny. The timing and everything. I was like, this is the click that he's talking about. Just tell your truth. Just be the funny person that you are. Just tell your truth. And when I said that, I know what you're thinking. Look at her. She thinks she's cute. And when I said, I do, she laughed. As we were talking about making the heckler laugh, making the person who doesn't want to laugh. And I made her laugh. And then she gave me a pound. And then we were friends. So now every time I came back on stage, that was my buddy. But that was my first laugh. And shoot, I was a comedian. Now I was ready to go on the road. Like, slow your ass down.
As far as, looking at that, because that was, I feel like a lot of comedians kind of had that story of they were at a bar or they was a bet maybe. So how do we now know, did you always kind of identify, hey, I want to be on TV? Or were you just kind of flowing through things? Were you just receiving it as it came?
Fred G. Sanford was my inspiration to make people laugh. And my uncle told me while we was all sitting there in the front room cracking up, and there was something bad looming over us, but we were all laughing and having a great time. And he told me comedy was medicine. And I started writing down jokes that I was going to tell people as an adult, not as a professional comedian, but I was going to heal people through this funny thing. And I had to get funny to keep people off of me. So I remember I didn't even know I was funny till one day Joano comes across the playground. He's like, I'm gonna get Angie on you. They was playing the dozens and they were like, no. And I came back and wore everybody out and it was like, oh, I am funny. I couldn't be that funny where I live because I'd have got my ass whooped. But at school, I could be as funny as I wanted to be. And that's when I realized, okay, we got something here. And it took me a minute. Like I went through the beauty business first because that was kind of low hanging fruit. I could walk into anywhere and I could book a job. As you know, I was a showroom model. I walked into any apparel mart. I mean, I did trade. I wasn't the only outside of trade shows and catalog was season. I would do season in South Florida. I do some season in New York, but for the most part, I was just a working model. I did catalog and trade shows.
So, just looking at your credits, it seems that In Living Color was the first kind of taste of the business. Was that an earlier one?
Was it in Living Color?
And if so, or just in general, how did you land that role? How did you get it?
Well, in the '90s, in that particular era, there were there were people who were bookable who stood out, and I was one of them. I mean, I was in a lane pretty much by myself. I was a model turned comic. We had Kim Cole. She was gorgeous, and she talked about being pretty. Her Apollo set. I watched her Apollo set when I was still living in Atlanta before I even started modeling. Kim Cole's Apollo set and the Apollo in general, when the Apollo came on in the comics, where I could see black comedy, that that drove me to, okay, I can do it, I can do it. And then when I saw Kim Coles, I was like, I can do this. But during that era, if you see all those films, it was kind of like the Spike Lee films, where he took the same cast and reinvented them in different projects. So there was just a group of really funny, bankable. You could count on them. You could work with them. Comic actors that went from project to project. You got A.J. Johnson, Faison Love, um, um, Chris Tucker. I mean, we were Mike Epps. We were all just going from project to project. Actually, Mike Epps came. Mike Epps was like the second wave of comics during that era. I mean, we really trailblazed after the death of Robin Harris. And it was so sad, but after the death of Robin Harris is when the black stand-up comedy exploded
Why do you think that is?
because we didn't have it. It hadn't been, you had black exploitation in the '70s and it ran its course. And we had the Cosbys, we had a different world. And that's what we had in the '80s. And then by the late '80s, we had people like Martin Lawrence leading the way. We had Eddie Murphy. It mid '80s, Eddie was like king. Richard Pryor was completely something different. Richard Pryor was God. He was God. Like he ran the '70s. Richard Pryor is the reason that most people don't know who Franklin Ajayi is. You know, um, so the '90s just was populated by this group of funny people who just went from project to project, and I was blessed to be a part of that group.
When you did land the role in Friday, were you surprised, or what was the initial energy of landing that role?
I was not surprised. I was not surprised when I landed the role of Felicia. It didn't come as a shock. It didn't come as I went in there when I came from Atlanta to Los Angeles on the plane, I wrote a list of things that I wanted to do. And on the top of that list, I wanted to get through my commercial stuff. I wanted to do a global commercial. I wanted to do some national spots. I knocked that out right away. It's crazy how my list came to life, and I checked it all off. I mean, literally in order. One of the last things on that list was interesting character. And when I got a call for that audition, I was like, this is her. This is that. This is it. And the last thing on that list was mom. There's a couple of things that I didn't do on the list, but it's still there. Life is still happening. So I wanted to be. I did I did a couple of global spots right away. I remember the first one was for Maxell, Japan. I did a milk global spot. Then I did a bunch of national stuff, Toyota, stuff, Tide, all that stuff, Kmart, J.C. Penney. Then guest starred on started doing the sitcoms, guest starred, co-starred, then series regular. And the way that I set this up again was to prepare myself. Is the same as what I'm doing right now. I want to do all that other stuff first and then get to series regular and be able to handle, what it was. Jennifer Lewis says, if you don't know who you are, you're in the back of a limousine, you might as well be in the back of a Pinto because it doesn't make a difference. You have to know who you are and you have to know what you're doing. You have to know where you're going.
The character of Felicia, for many, she's just seen as like a crackhead for some. How did you come at that character to try to give her something different than just, the usual stereotypes we might have about people that use drugs?
I wish I still had Felicia's bio. At the time, I was in an intensive actor workshop. I was in actor workshop with Hill Harper, Vanessa Williams was in there, Marcus Johnson, Ricky Harris. The late, great Ricky Harris is one of the greatest actors of our time that we don't give him enough credit. He's part of that group that went from job to job in the 90s. But I wrote a bio on Felicia, and um, it was an amazing process. It was one of the greatest processes that I've ever been allowed to be a part of. So I wrote a very intense bio on her. Some of the things that had happened to her. Um, I mean, her background from everything, where she went to school, her everything about her. I wrote the bio was pretty. I wish I still had that thing. Oh boy. So I put everything down on paper. Then I put it inside. I trusted it, and Angela went away. And this person, Felicia, emerged. And I think that I was really the only one working this way. It's the Meisner. I worked the Meisner technique, and I was really really this person, and I was really feeling her emotions. I was feeling a lot of fear, a lot of things had happened to Felicia. You know, why would maybe people were tired of her? Maybe why was there so much hate for such an obviously beautiful woman? She was kind. You didn't hear her using any profanity. You didn't hear any of that. Why would they be so unkind to a family member? Why would people be so dismissive? Why would no one defend her? And I've asked this question for 30 years. Why is it so easy for us to dismiss each other like that? A young lady who obviously, again, we don't owe each other anything. We're here to experience and take things back to our source that we learn, but at the same time, we have these emotions to manage. But why? That's when people come at me, and even to this day, I'll see people saying, bye, you dirty bitch, you fucked up bitch, you dumb bitch. No, not one time, not even the mother said, hey, how's Felicia? I wonder what's going on with her. Not one person.
How true do you think the script was trying to reflect that, of how we disregard each other and, we just kind of toss each other to the side if we're doing bad? Do you think he was trying to be genuine about what was happening in real life?
Absolutely, 100%. When you listen to Pooh and Cube talk about writing and creating this world, they created a world, and it was because the '90s was so violent, and we were portrayed as these violent, mad people on the West Coast. We were killing and fighting each other, but there was also another life. We normal. He showed the life of Black folks in the hood and what was happening with our families and our. But at the same time, yeah, it was happening. But um, we just kind of let Felicia fall through the cracks. We're responsible for ourselves, but she had been like that a long time. It didn't just happen. She was like that. So what happened to Felicia? Why didn't anyone get upset when she showed up beat up? Why? Because she's and you saw she didn't steal any money. You know why she was going to get that microwave? You know who she was cooking chicken for? You know why she was going to get the car? You know who she was going to get something for? She had to go drive and do an errand for her man. She was so loyal to her man to the point where and did you see at the end of the film who was there when he was knocked out? Who was standing right by his side? And she didn't get any points for that. She was trying to help him as much as she needed help, as much as Felicia needed help. She was standing by this bully who was bullied. Debo was bullied. Debo didn't Debo didn't just decide to start taking people's shit. At one point in my bio, I wrote that she went to go borrow the microwave to keep Debo from stealing it. And at one point, I almost said, well, you either going to give me that motherfucker or Debo going to come take it. And I'm trying to help him. Felicia wasn't a thief. She wasn't a crackhead. She'll smoke your weed up.
Well, so I guess that was the assumption, right? That she was like on drugs, or?
She was a hood rat.
So there's been like this huge conversation. You just said that Ice Cube owes you nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely nothing. He gave me a job in the greatest Black comedy ever produced outside of Uptown Saturday Night. And isn't it funny? One is Friday and one's Saturday. Uptown Saturday Night changed my life. And for me to be a part of Friday, Faison and I were talking one day, this maybe 6-7 years ago, and how far outside of the industry I had ventured. And he said, "You're part of something no one can ever take from you. Can never take it from you. And you did your thizzle." But he owes the world nothing. He owns Black America nothing. They keep saying, "You owe us another Friday. You owe us another Friday." That first Friday was on behalf He spoke on behalf of 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 culture, of our culture.
And it's interesting, like, because you see that body of work, and even looking at Cube's interviews in the past, like his back in the day, he was like kind of a militant minded brother. So fast forward, he ends up getting backlash for, I guess, people thinking that he was trying to co-sign Trump. You remember that? He was like the letter to Black America. What was your reaction to seeing that play out? Did you kind of look at it indifferently, like what he was up to, or did you think it was unfair how people were kind of like coming at him?
I could see both sides of the fence. It was one of those things you could equate to shut up and dribble. You know, um, people feel strongly on both sides of the fence. I'm I'm live and let live, but I, unless it's unless it's just outright abuse of an animal or a child or black people, I'm going to look at. I have to look at both sides. Um, and what people fail to realize is that Cube has been our spokesperson for a long time, since the beginning of his career, and he's also not not just a spokesperson, but an example, particularly as a businessman. You know, we think that that these deals just happen and everyone's gravy. All those musicians are gravy. Well, they're not. And if you don't stand up, if you don't educate yourself, you're going to get taken advantage of. And what some of the backstories, how Cube conducted himself personally and professionally, he don't owe nobody nothing. And if you want to write some ideas for Trump, baby, right, get to writing.
Yeah, I think people
Go
were
get
just,
Pooh. Yeah, write it.
and that might go back into how you felt that Felicia was disregarded, maybe not heard. And I think like in the Trump era, we were just so turned off by Trump that anybody that gave him a lifeline, if you will, acknowledged him, felt like they were betraying us.
I didn't. I don't participate in American politics. First of all, um, it doesn't make sense. None. Our economy makes no sense. Capitalism makes no sense. What capitalism creates, it just makes no sense. Bureaucracy makes no sense. Um, Politics makes no sense. American government makes no sense.
Is this through the lens of a black?
This is through the lens of a world traveler. This is through the lens of someone who has traveled outside of this country and has looked through the lens of other cultures, looking at America around the world. We're a joke. How black people are treated. A 30-year-old Russian told me, we were doing business together, and I stopped doing business with him. He told me black people don't contribute. They don't contribute. What do black people contribute? They never contribute. I said, well, let me tell you, you think it was white people making jobs easier for slaves? You think it was a white person who invented the broom, the washing machine, the clothesline, the light bulb? You think all those inventions was white? The elevator. Do you think that white people were actually making life easy for the slaves? That's what you think? And he said, no, Edison, and then he what's the word I'm looking for? Semantics. Then he got on semantics. No, Edison, no. There's a dude named Latimer who invented that filament. It was a black woman that got us to the moon. It's a black woman, the reason you have computers. Did you? So we're in a society that is steeped in cognitive dissonance. We are the only society that advertises medication. And it puts all these disclaimers. You're going to die and piss blood for 2 weeks before you die. Shouldn't there be something against that? We are eating, there's foods that are on the shelves that are banned in other countries. Red food dye is killing people left and right. Skittles kills you. We have foods that have formaldehyde in them, that have poisons in them. We're biology. And when you put chemicals in biology, it has no place to go. So it sits dormant, it bounces around, and it makes your system overwork. And you're always tired. And you don't know why you're always tired. You're tired because your digestive system is working so hard, and then it's working hard, and you throw some more junk in there, and it's working, it's working. It's like, I'm trying, wait, I'm trying to get rid of this. And then before you know it, we're a nation of obese people, of angry people, how do we imprison so many people? How do we think that's cool? To lock so many people away? How do American politicians stand at a podium and say that they're for the people, and so many are in prison right now, dying from poor living conditions? Why would I participate in American politics when it's for the people, by the people, but I didn't have no say if you sending billions of dollars to Ukraine? The only thing that I know about Ukraine and black people is that the Red Cross told all the black military people, you're going to be called nigger. So just relax, be forewarned. I wouldn't have voted it. Hey, I don't want to send $1 billion to Ukraine. Let them do them. I want to send $1 billion to the Congo. They're being murdered too. That's where I want to send $1 billion. I don't have any say. I know that the presidential election, and then you talk about the primary, and then you must vote on the state and the how. I don't participate.
Somewhat pivot from the politics to something you were just talking about, health, right? You recently got into health, but it made me think about, black men's health in particular. We don't last too long. A lot of times it seems like our woman or whoever we're with outlives us, a lot of times. And on your particular vehicle, your Project Friday, we lost a lot of black men in that, and women as well, with health. Um, I guess, yeah. How do we talk about the people that we lost? None of them were killed by like bullets, I don't think, or
Food is the number one killer. Food is the number one killer. And I'll go so far as to say, doctors be killing motherfuckers. The third leading cause of death is medical malpractice, is misdiagnosis of medicine. That is the third leading cause of death. And you get on this medicine to mask all these symptoms created by what you're putting in your body. And we're allowed to eat a lot of things that I was saying is banned in other countries. They're living longer in other countries because their governments are afraid of them. We're afraid of our government. So we accept garbage on the shelves. You go into the average American grocery store, nothing on the shelf is edible. Nothing should be consumed on any of it. Processed foods, and a lot of vegans are going to get in trouble because they're going from meat to this processed meat, and it's going to cause a lot of problems eventually, and it's going to come back on the vegan community as if, listen, your body is delicate. You are a delicate, beautiful machine. And when you overwork your insides, you become sick. We are really frutivores. I go 1 week out of the month, I eat only fruit, raw fruit. I'll eat an entire watermelon, oranges, mangoes, grapes, melon. and I clean my system out, and and my energy shoots through the roof. People say, "Oh, we got fangs." That's been dispelled. The hippopotamus has the biggest fangs in the world, and they're herbivores. Well, my muscles, I need my protein. Where does the cow get his protein? Where does the horse get his protein? Where does the gorilla get his protein? Gorillas eat berries and twigs, and the gorilla could come through here and rip this whole place up. We have been indoctrinated in the church, and we have been led to believe that all we have to do is pray over our food and it ain't going to hurt us. That is 75% of the case. Oh, I just pray over my food. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to have my meat. Well, in actuality, you're not meant to eat meat. And particularly melanated people are not meant to eat acidic foods. Melanated people are meant to consume alkaline foods. Melanated people are meant to consume melon. When melanated people eat watermelon, it's like gold. And so vilifying watermelon helps you hurt yourself. I don't eat watermelon. No, I don't do that. You're supposed to. And yes, you do have an appetite for it. But now all of a sudden you don't want to eat watermelon? Watermelon is the world's largest vine fruit. And it is literal gold. Genesis 1:29. When people start talking about the Bible, Genesis 1:29. I spread the seeds upon the land for you to use as meat.
Yeah. So, like, just again, reflecting on the people we lost and even Bernie Mac, do you feel like in your heart that if they would have had maybe some education about these foods, would they still be with us?
100%. 100%. We like meat because we season it with plants. Season plants with plants. There's enough plants to give you the texture, the desired texture that you are looking for. And I'll give you a shrimp that tastes so clean and so good that you won't want to, you'll see how clean food is actually supposed to taste. And it's all education. It's all what we're willing to accept. But because we've been indoctrinated, we honestly believe that we need this big amount of protein. And there are doctors that are telling us right now, there's a hospital down in Houston that does not allow meat. If you go to the American Cancer Society, it says meat is a cause of cancer. Yet they have recipes on there for meat. Crazy, right? Listen, when I saw Tiny Lister, the last time I saw Tiny, we were on the road together, and Tiny didn't look so good. And I've been in this field now over a decade, and I've been mentored by a lot of professionals where I can look at someone and I can tell what's going on in their body. And Tiny was in renal failure when I saw him. There were parts of his body that were retaining water, and he was literally being poisoned. And I watched him consume energy drink after energy drink after energy drink, and I begged him. I did. And I just said, please, please, please. I used to call him Papa. I call him Big Daddy sometimes. Just come and try it. I gotta pick up my girl. I'm good, baby girl. I'm good, baby girl. I'm good. And it's like, look at his leg was the size of a tree. It was one leg, looked like a tree trunk. From his foot to his hip, it was all one size and it was swollen. And he was having kidney issues. But you could look at it, and I just wanted to say, let me just clean you out. There's a couple of comics, every time I run into them, a couple female comics, I beg them. You know, and a lot of times people feel that a little bit of weight is what's healthy. That's healthy. Girl, I'm thick, I'm healthy. Some, yeah, I suppose. But you get signs and we ignore them. We ignore all the signs. Tiny was getting signs. Yvette was getting, they were all getting these signs. John Witherspoon ate nothing but fried chicken. He would go get a bag of fried chicken and that's what he would eat. And the last time I saw him, I could see it, like his face was bloated and he looked like he was struggling. Like,
So that's interesting because, you know, some people might have felt that it was a curse, right? The amount of people that were passing, like maybe like a Friday curse. But the curse might have been our health or our
what was the what curse?
I guess it's from
Oh, because they were dying younger?
people passing away from that. That might be conspiracy type of rhetoric, but in hearing this, it's like, okay, there was a common denominator, what maybe ended a lot of people's lives, unfortunately.
It's food. Food is the number one killer. And your body can't digest a lot of stuff that you're eating. And if your body can't digest it, it's going to store decomposing flesh. You know, it's dry. People, you see people who have a lot of acne. You can look at them and say, "You drink a lot of milk, huh?" It's pus. Milk is just pus.
How do you define, you know, we have canine teeth. How do you feel about that? Like we have canines,
Yeah.
right? So do you feel like that's not meant to consume or help you tear through meat?
So does the hippopotamus. The hippopotamus has the biggest canines in the kingdom. He's an herbivore. Any mammal that chews like this, that rotates, is grinding. You see dogs chew like that. Lions chew like that. Giraffes, another vegan. The camel, you see him, his jaw is just rotating.
So your whole campaign is to try to get us off food. I mean,
yeah, get off food. You don't need all that food.
breatharians.
Breatharian. Watertarians. I mean, people go on water fast. I just want people to stop eating so much food.
Okay.
We're addicted to food. We're addicted to the chemicals in the food. Corporations know what they're doing. America is a corporation. It's not a country. It's a business, and we are a part of it. We get this social security number. We're commodities. We're products of this country.
If I'm a person that grew up to Big Mama's cooking, like, how do I get off of that? How do I wing off?
Come to Jackfruit Cafe. I cook better than Big Mama. Square biz. And I'll stand toe to toe with Big Mama.
Yeah.
Square biz.
For those that don't know, what is Jack Cafe?
Jackfruit Cafe, we started it. We're getting ready to celebrate our 5th year anniversary. It's an all vegan soul food eatery. We started on Crenshaw and 29th. Leimert Park was the area that supported me when I was coming up. So when I had an opportunity, my son went to school. He went to the University of Miami. He went across the country, and I had all this time on my hand. I was an empty nester, and I knew that someone told me that comedy wasn't medicine, it's food. So I was like, you're right. And I had been a teen mom and the snack shack coordinator for 15 years. So it was just seamless for me to go into, to pivot into food service
Have
for
you
a
seen
living.
people's lives turn around?
Absolutely, 100%. And I tell people that all the time when they come or I see people, I'll give people my card. And it's like, let me help you. And we blew up because someone was so against KGLH. The DJs were coming when we were on Crenshaw and 29th. The DJs were coming and eating the food. I had no idea, and they were talking about it on the radio. Don Amici, and he was signing off saying, heading over to Jackfruit Cafe. And one day he came in with some tacos, and he told Tammy Mack, try the tacos. Tammy Mack was like, I don't do that vegan stuff. Like most of us, that vegan stuff. that vegan stuff is real food. So she didn't do that vegan stuff. Do that vegan stuff. Donna Michi made her, said, just try it. Just try it. I just need you to try it. She bit into it and was like, damn, you lying. You lying.
You think we are against trying vegan?
We're against a lot of things. We have to walk with caution. Once we are the most set in our ways group of people that there are. We are the scaredest group of people. We do not venture off. We don't travel. We don't read Proust. We don't do things. Even the most accomplished people in our community. I worked for one of the biggest stars in the world, and he refused to learn the computer. And I was like, just let me, it's like an ATM machine. No, that's what you do. That's what you do. I understand paying people for what they do. But something as simple as navigating through a computer and learning how to open up a hard drive. And I'm not saying that we are the only community, but we are all these Proud Boys, they're angry. They're not scared. What they're scared of is minorities taking over. So there's a real fear there. But it's more anger. It's visceral anger. We're not angry. We're not angry because as soon as we get angry, we're not angry. We're hurting. We're merely surviving. And I tell my crew, we don't know that we can. We don't know how to get a $100,000 line of credit. We don't know how to do that, and it's really easy to do. It's really easy to get your hands on money. We don't know not to keep our money in the bank, to put our money in whole life insurance. We don't know that. We don't know that banks are for transactions. We don't know these things because we stay here because of all the oppression. It's not our fault. We've been conditioned to this. So my job is to step up, to be this target, to be this, people laugh at me all the time. But hey, I might know a woman we got off of dialysis. I might know a woman whose toes we saved. Maybe. I might know that person. I might know hundreds of people who are no longer diabetics after 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Not the diabetes that you were born with, but the diabetes that you create because of your diet. You cannot be it's 10 days and you will not need insulin anymore. If you go to and I realized this, my mother, when she was in hospice, my mother died of liver cancer 15 years ago, and this is when I really started my journey. They stopped feeding her. She did not eat for 4 to 5 days. She didn't need insulin. When we tested her blood, it was fine. So I was like, it's the food that's doing all of this. And the nurse stood there and was like, yeah, we know. Yeah. I'm like, but yeah, you're giving people all this medication. People want the medication. They would rather have you crack their chest open and put a stent in their hearts than to stop eating bloody steaks. You cannot consume blood. You cannot consume starch. You cannot consume you cannot consume gluten and think that your body is going to function as the universe intended it to. You're a house plant. You just need sunlight and water.
We would end up, losing Tiny to cardiovascular disease. Is how he left us. Do you remember finding out when he passed away?
Yeah, there's a kid that's been following me on social media since he was a little boy, and he's now got his first job in a restaurant. Yeah, and he called on there, Angie, Zeus died. And I dropped the phone and I just went outside. My hopes were that I would have convinced him to let me help him, and then he would have been an example. When I first started this journey, I was 200 and I was about I was about 200, I was pushing 230, and I ballooned up after my son went to the other side of the country to go to school, and I hit a wall of depression because I didn't listen to my elders and keep my life. I was completely in, you know, providing him resources, getting him there, making sure him. I mean, his last couple of years of high school was my job. And if I could have convinced Tiny to let me work on him, he could have helped a lot of people by turning his life around through medicine. Food is medicine, medicine is food. The father of medicine coined that phrase, Hippocrates. Modern doctors take the Hippocratic oath from Hippocrates, but are not allowed to practice what Hippocrates practiced. Hippocrates practiced herbs. There was somebody that during the Industrial Revolution, our ancestors healed through something called elixirs, which was white oak bark, comfrey, black walnut hull. You have some black walnut hull tea, it's going to regulate, it's going to line you right back up. All 7 chakras, you're going to get lined right back up. This pineal gland is going to be decalcified. You're going to be able to see everything, and you're going to go, hey, 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 don't tease Felicia. Come here, Felicia. Come here. What happened? Okay, everybody sit down. This is what we're going to do. You go over there, you go over there, you go over there. Leaders will emerge. You'll find your lane. You'll get in your lane. And until you are in your lane, you will not find happiness. And we comparative think, and it's because this pineal gland is calcified. It's because you got all this junk inside of you that you cannot. You're part of a team, a world community team. And you have to, it is your personal responsibility to get into your lane. And that lane is going to be hard until you get over the hump. This 5 years kicked my ass. This 5 years of food service, of building this brand, of helping people, of employing people, of everything that I had to learn to be an entrepreneur, a lesser person would have folded. And I hope to shine as an example for that. You can't go 2.5 years in. What you're doing, it shit gets hard. Nipsey talks about the pressure. He talked about it all the time. He left us so many gems. It's not supposed to be comfortable. If you get comfortable, we eat and eat and eat, and most people die. Most people die between 6 and 9 o'clock on Monday morning, heading to work. Most people die around the holidays. It's big meals. You sit there and I got the itis. I got the itis. You're that close to a heart attack. Food is fuel. You're supposed to eat food and go build a retaining wall. Go refinish a dresser. Food is fuel. You're not supposed to eat and go into a daze, because what's happening is your digestive system is grinding out. It's grinding and grinding and grinding, trying to digest that. It's taxing your heart. So you're all energy, right? So your digestive system is building up energy. It doesn't have enough. It's like, Scotty, send me some more energy. So it goes to the heart. And it's like Debo, and it's like, give me that energy pump. So now it's got the heart's energy, and it's grinding. It still ain't enough. We need some more. So it goes to the brain. And it says, give me that brain, give me that energy pump. So it takes the brain's energy. Now you're sitting there like, and your heart you're that close.
Yeah. So when he did, transition, were you surprised?
Out of respect to him and his family, I'm just gonna say that I just wish he had come to see me. But, He's downloading all his experience. He lived a wonderful life. You look at his resume, you look at the things that he did and the people that he influenced, and I have yet to meet anyone. One person. And it was a private conversation the three of us were having, and Tiny got a little outside of himself. But most people who talk about Tiny talk about how his goodness. He was very religious and always left people with blessings. But he was a good person.
Why do you think a lot of Black men hesitate when it comes to like like our health? Why don't we go to the doctor? We kind of wait to the last minute. That's a very, I don't know what it is. My thought process was just because we got so much stuff on our plate to deal with, and we just don't want to add no more mess on our mind. That might be how I even treat the situation.
Yeah, it is. And it's because we were taught to survive and not thrive. And if you were taught to thrive, you'd get in and get things checked. If you were taught to thrive, then you wouldn't consume as much meat. If you were taught to thrive, but you weren't, you were taught to survive. And those survival techniques that you were given are part of your demise. It's a vicious circle. It's very vicious, and it's from people who didn't know any better. And what happened was during the Industrial Revolution, very, very wealthy people had chemicals left over. And they started testing these chemicals on Black folks. And they started figuring out what these chemicals can do. Then they called these chemicals medication. And the American Medical Association was born. And the American Medical Association is a club. It's not a government entity, it's nothing, but the government protects it. It's a club, and when you go to the doctor is when you're initiated into the club. And when you go and you go to this pharmacist with this prescription that this person has given you, now you go over here and you get these chemicals. And what they did was they vilified, and it's the same thing, the crash of 29. The most powerful people in the world own media. It's just such an incredible thing that you're doing because, as you know, the big media outlets are owned by the same people and they report what they want. So if they tell you that this guy traveling the country with this elixir is a villain, you're going to believe him. Now get your butt in there to the doctor. And never mind natural remedies that are going to help you.
I do have a question about kind of Felicia, and I want to be able to move on to other things. This role, you did a great job with it. A character that a lot of people still quote or think about, and I think at least some even thought that she was like maybe really like this in real life.
Yes.
Did that affect or hurt your career afterwards when people maybe assumed this was you in real life?
No. Yes and no. Everything is ambiguous. Everything, particularly when it's surrounding Friday and entertainment and Angela Means. I didn't start out in show business to be famous or to be, to make $1 million. That's not why I did it. I just did it because I was following my bliss. And it just so happened that the residual of it was fame and some fortune. Some people now are defending me because they know how much I contribute, and I'll see it online. Excuse me, that was a character. You don't know the difference. Like people are starting to read people. I became her. I was a woman named Felicia Monroe. And it was hard for me to get out of her. It took me months. I was still her. When production ramped, I was down. I was very depressed. Felicia obviously suffered from depression that she masked through what's the word I'm looking for when you just don't care. Not nonchalant. She was indifferent. She was just indifferent. She was just there. She was come what may. I'm come what may. I You can't hurt me anymore. You can't laugh at me anymore. So how do I protect Debo? Because Debo has this central thing that comforts me. Debo comforts me. Even though he bullies you, he provides me comfort that nobody in this world ever did. So um, it was hard for me to come out of her. I went that deep, and it was easy for me to walk away. Um, Once my child came along, I hit one of the marks on my to-do list. I was a series regular on a Nickelodeon show called Cousin Skeeter with Megan Good, Robert Rashad. Robert Rashad played my son Bobby. Megan was the young lady down the hall, and Rondo Sheridan was my husband, and Bill Bellamy was the voice of the puppet. And when that show went down is when I decided to just stay at home with Bradley because I recognized his gifts and I wanted to make sure they were cultivated and that he had every resource that any other kid in Beverly Hills, Calabasas, Westlake had, and he did. If you see his resume, it's very impressive. I mean, we put this kid in finance classes at Pierce College in between third and fourth grade. He's talking to me now about, okay, no, you gonna move this over here and you gonna move it.
Why do you think you poured so much into your son? Like,
I needed a mentor, so I raised one. And I know a lot of women like that. I put everything into him that I wanted to see in our men. And I praised him for being good. And I backed off when he started feeling himself and testing himself. And I let him learn his lessons. But the number one thing that I did for him was to insist that he respect his resources. You start something, you finish it. You level up every time. You do not stay at this level. So once we complete this, you're not going here to complete something. You're going here. And then you're going here, and then you're going here.
does he realize the sacrifice you made? Because ultimately, you're saying that you pretty much disappeared because you decided to focus on motherhood. Is he aware of that decision?
Um, I disappeared from in front of the camera, but I entertain thousands of people coming through the football gates every day. I remember making my son laugh so hard one time. His eyes got so big, he was begging me to stop, and he looked at me like, "Who in the fuck is you?" Like how? Like it was a superpower. Like I got on a roll, and it was feeling so good. This poor kid, like he was begging me to stop because his stomach hurt. Um, Sacrifice is inevitable, and the sacrifice is inevitable. You can't advance without taking some steps back. Look at the bow and arrow. You got to pull that bad boy back, and the farther back you pull it. So I knew this, and the whole time I talked to the universe, and I was like, I know you got me. I know you got me when this is all done, when this is all done. I didn't mean to go away for so long. I meant to just get him into preschool. But then once I got him into preschool, he was reading sight words. He was a photographer. He didn't understand the settings, but he understood composition, and he was a brilliant photographer. So I didn't want people putting fingerprints on his brain. So I said, okay, one more year. Then I was a classroom mom, and then when he was 3 years old, I took him to a music school, and the woman was like, "We don't take 3-year-olds." And I said, "You got to meet him." I called her. She was like, "Ma'am, whatever your name is, ma'am, we don't take 3-year-olds. Listen to me. I'm going to get off this phone because I'm busy." I put my 3-year-old in the car, and I went down to the school, and I sat outside of her office. She said, "I don't mean to be rude, but I'm adamant. We don't take 3-year-olds." And I said, Could you please indulge me and just meet him and just interview him? Just, just, do you have children? She had children. I said, please, I don't mean to, I'll pay you. What's your hourly rate? Please meet him, interview him. Within 15 minutes, I was writing the check for his music lessons. So respect that resource. And he did. He was prepared. Every recital, he was the most prepared. And it's just, God, it was just so yummy. It was better than entertainment. Raising him for me was better. And again, I didn't do it for attention. I wasn't in entertainment for attention. I wasn't one of those people that if I didn't make it, I was going to jump off the Hollywood sign. I knew that. I mean, I would. I could have went back to modeling. I could have went back to the farm. I could have went anything that I do. I'm good because I commit and I understand it because nobody put fingerprints on my brain and I was able to see everything. And on that farm, if you don't work, you don't eat. So that's my mantra. And that's my son's mantra. And my son was the kid that on the football field, he gonna be the last one to leave the field. And I'd sit there in the stands and I see him, the practice would be over, and I see him down there throwing one of the water boys. And I see him looking so it'd be one more dude. And I'm sitting there like he ain't gonna leave this field till that kid is gone. And sure enough, as soon as that kid left,
Ultimately would get him into the league. So who's your son, just for people that don't know?
my son is Brad Kaya Jr. His father is Brad Kaya Sr. and Kaya Kaaya. His father was one of the original producers on Mad TV. He's one of Damon Wayans' original producers. He wrote the film O with Mekhi Phifer, Julia Stiles, and he also wrote the film. He saved the film How High, but the Writers Guild took that credit from him and gave it to to the Jewish kid who penned the script, but they weren't going to make that script until my husband came in and made the script work. How high? And my son is now following in his footsteps. But Brad Kaya Jr. is a very well-known football player from the West Valley. He played with Snoop's kids, Diddy's kids. He played with Wes Crockett's son. He played with um, Quincy used to be out there on the sideline. Quincy used to help me at the snack shack. And Kim would, bless her, bless that beautiful, sweet lady that we lost. Um, it was such a, but Brad committed. He was a big kid. He was a smart kid. He was a Tom Brady. He was reading defenses at 6. UCLA came out at coach at UCLA said the kid reading a defense. He's 6. I remember he showed up to practice when they named him the quarterback. They gave him a playbook. They told him to look at 4 or 5 of the plays. Bradley came back and coach asked him, did you learn a few plays? Brad said, I know them all. He said, what are you talking about you know them all? I know them all. And he got a little scared. And then he said, I know all the defense too. This kid was 6.
So, that's huge for us to be able to pour into our children and see them become success. Has to be huge because in our position where, it's against our odds a lot of times. Like you're really big into health. So health is important, raising, I guess, a healthy family, avoiding certain, I would say, obstacles that is placed in front of us in this country. Now, I would have to ask, like, is there a reason, and this is my last Felicia question though, but is there a reason why we didn't see her continue with the movie, with Friday?
Okay. Um, um, when they came back with the second one, AJ Johnson and I, we we were supposed to do something. There was something that those two characters were supposed to do in the second one.
From an intimate standpoint?
No, 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 no. They were because they were the two hood rats, and they had provided a lot of the humor. And I think, was Bernie gone by then?
For the second one?
No, no, he was still around for the second one. It was, I think, the third one. Um, I just believe that the humongous success of the first one led Cube to believe that lightning would strike twice. And his loyalties were not so much to the original cast, but more so to where he thought the franchise could ultimately go. Second project, as funny as it was and as great as some of those characters was, Pinky. I freaking love Pinky. I wish Pinky would have been in the first one. I wish Money Mike had been in the first one. Those two characters. Oh my God. I mean, we got some really great characters out of the second and third one, but I don't think that the second and third script held the same amount of importance to the culture and insights to the culture that the first one did. And I don't think that those two projects were great. I'm so happy that they did them. I don't mind not being in them. I was having a wonderful time what I was doing. Trust me, I wasn't sitting around twiddling my thumbs. And I haven't been twiddling my thumbs for 20 years. I've been working and I've been enjoying my life, and I've been gathering information to bring back. I knew that when Felicia blew up, I found out that Bye Felicia was trending in the same conversation that I found out my son got an offer to the University of Miami. My boys, Anthony Wright called, and the first thing he said was congratulations, and I knew it was an offer. And I said, who? And he was like, University of Miami. I was like, oh my fucking God! I mean, I literally was doing the Three Stooges, and then I came back to the phone and I was like, not Ohio, right? And he was like, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with Ohio. Give it up for, what's his name, went to Pittsburgh. Was that the big boy that was, anyway. And then when we were getting ready to hang up, he said, bye, Felicia. And I was like, oh, nigga. You didn't just say bye, Felicia. Oh, he was ancient. I called him ancient. And he said, Ange, you don't know? That's trending. And I was like, trending? What's trending? He was like, it's your ancient ass. He said, you have Twitter? I was like, no. He said, go to Twitter right quick. Just punch in the pound sign. I didn't even know what happened. He said, punch in the pound sign and put in bye, Felicia. My jaw dropped. And then I got scared. I was feeling like because when it first came out, I would get bombarded. And I was 5 months pregnant at the premiere. So by the time the movie came out and it was in full swing, I had a newborn. I wasn't touring. I wasn't doing anything. I participated in no PR. There's a video that they did where they hijacked the airplane. Every cast member is in that except Felicia. All the way down to the little boy who was kicking over the trash cans. Every single person is in there except Felicia. I was pregnant. I guess they didn't want to show Felicia pregnant. There was no conversation about me being in that video. But I had this newborn child. I had this incredible little baby that, I mean, I got down. I did as much as I could for him. So Friday, the second and third installment, and me not being in them was okay because of what their mindset was. Their mindset was just about that franchise and moving forward, and Friday the 13th. Those are all new cast members. wasn't the same people going out into the wilderness getting fucked up. So it was business decisions. Cube's a capitalist, you know. I mean,
I guess I would imagine though.
but he wasn't going to be able to give me $2,400 again, and that's another thing. So now the new cast, okay, we're gonna start over. He go your $2,400. But I'm sure that Kim Whitley at the time, she was on the map. I'm sure that they were getting. We got what was called scale, minimum. Maybe at that time they got a little bit more. Maybe not. I don't know if they discussed their pay, the second and third installment. But I just, it was just business. It was his project. It was his prerogative. It was, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to put on my menu. I'm gonna get rid of this whole thing and create a whole new menu. That's my prerogative. I don't care you like them tacos. I like these tacos. You're gonna eat these because that's what I'm serving you. So it's his right.
Because I'm assuming that when he didn't ask the character to come back, he didn't write it to come back, or what was it? It was a combination of sorts.
No, I'm mature enough to know that there was no need for my services. My services weren't required. I wasn't asked. Go on about your business, but I'm not gonna play myself.
At the time, because that, I mean,
I played myself one time and begged the director for a job.
oh Lord.
And I had done such a great job in this director's reading. I had read several characters, and it's a very well-known film. It's a staple in our community. And I read 5 characters in their table read. And I was at the table with the big A-listers, and I got down. And producers all came to me afterwards. And I kept calling that director, and I didn't get the job. And I felt like I played myself, and I never did that again. You hear these stories about, I stayed on him. Well, I didn't do that shit no more.
I think Tisha Campbell hijacked her audition, one of her auditions. She talks about that a lot. Thank you for that clarity, because I think people would want to know, like, oh, why didn't this character continue? Because By Felicia became this thing. So,
but she wasn't then. She wasn't this thing.
When
then.
Did you see it change?
It changed in it was like 2010.
Is when it became something.
It was when the drag queens brought it back 20 years later. The film came out in 94, so that's, a decade and a half later. But then, she wasn't even important enough to have in that video that shot around the world. So of course she wasn't going to be, if she didn't make it into that video, she wasn't going to make it into the next film. And listen, I've been cut out of so many films. So it comes with the territory. It's part of it.
It served its purpose at the same time. Like how, the overconsumption of food we talk about. There could be an overconsumption of anything. I think Felicia served its purpose. It made its mark.
Where she would be today, when I saw Cube, we were celebrating over at ESPN. They did a show with us, and Felicia and Debo birthed an entire defensive line. And all their names start with D. DeAndre, DeMichael, D-Ray, and the youngest one, his name D-Boo. That my baby. He be stretching my shoes out for me. And 4 of them in the league. Felicia worth $100 million. Debo was 6'8". Felicia, I'm 6 feet. Me and Tiny had a baby. He kept me pregnant 13 years straight. He don't with me no more. All I gotta do is call Deshaun. Debo can even fuck him up. So
where did that even come from? That's pretty dope.
Think about it. He didn't have no money. The only money he had was the money he was getting off of GR or money he was stealing. But Debo Debo lived in fear. Debo wasn't going outside the hood. Debo wouldn't have went somewhere and got no ends and planned something. He was just a petty little thief in the hood, and he'd go rob a truck or do some stuff like that. But Debo's entertainment was his woman. And, we had big families back in the day because we didn't have no money. We wasn't going to movies. We wasn't doing all that. We was at home. Hey, come on over here, girl. And have a little fun.
Kind of in like closing of this conversation, you had me thinking about, okay, you're doing Jackfruit Cafe, and we've, even in that storyline of Debo and Felicia having children, they're athletes. You have a son in real life that's an athlete. As a Black parent, do you think sometimes we pour too much into the sports sectors? Was that ever a debate in your mind?
No, not at all. Not at all. The most gifted athletes in the world are Black men. It's not a stereotype. It's a fact. Fastest men in the world, strongest men in the world, they're Black. So we, as a human being, use everything that we have to enjoy our life, to learn lessons, to get in your lane. Hey, if you're 7 feet tall and you understand how to get to the hole, it's your responsibility to use that talent, because that's the talent God gave you, because He wants to know what that is. So if you don't do it, you're letting the whole universe down. You fit in the universe. You're important. Every single person is important. So, no, I think that Black parents have every right, every notion, and they should put their kid in. Now, don't force children to do things. I had Bradley in ballet. Okay. He was in ballet from age 3 to 6, and that has a lot to do with how he can step back out of the pocket. But at age 6, he looked around and said, "Ain't no boys. Where the boys?" And at that point, he was like, I ain't going back. But he had already had 3 years. He had already been, in tune with everything. So I pulled him out. He said, "No, I'm not doing this." So I pulled him out. But you're doing something, and you're doing something that you have a natural ability to do, because that's just telling us that's yours.
So because my stance is I do want to see us do other things than rapping and sports, because I do think not all of us can do that. Like, statistically, only 450 players are in the NBA.
We do other things, but it's not covered.
I guess it doesn't feel as, this is me talking about this a hood experience perspective. It doesn't feel like as intentionally pushed for our children to do other things outside of, sports and recreational
It's not
things.
enamored. It's not. It's not. There's no. It's not revered.
Cause I was 5'4" at one point, right, as a kid. But in my head, I was like, I'm gonna get to the league, because that's all I knew or all I felt. And I wish I had someone there to keep it a little real with me. Hey, you might want to consider this. These are other things. So I just kind of question, us pushing all of our children. That's a lottery win to go pro. It's very fortunate, that your son is that position, because there's millions upon millions of guys that would love that. But,
I saw them every year. Kids didn't advance. I remember, blessing them when the football stopped. The football stopped at high school. The football stopped first year college. Bradley went all the way through. It was a natural ability. I mean, he could hit a receiver. I mean, he could thread. I mean, he did some things that there have been some games that this kid has done some things, and it was his natural ability. What we need to push for is ownership, because then that reduces the slave mentality. That's ownership. Somebody my owner, the owner of the club, and they're able to talk to those guys. You know, during the combine, they don't even feed them. They're there the entire day in their underwear, and they treat them like it's horrible how they treat them. But we take it because we got to make sure that Granny don't lose her house. We got to make sure this. We got to make sure that. My mama's been. So I want to retire my mom. My mom's been cleaning other people's houses. My mom. I want to do this for my mom. My mom had a big time career that she gave up for me. I want to do this for my mom. So I'm gonna go this whole day. I'm gonna get my tooth knocked out of my head for my mom. My son got a tooth knocked out of his head. He went and found the tooth, ran it over to the sideline coach, and then ran back into the huddle and didn't miss a snap. And he did that because the underlying thing, because we are as a community are only surviving, and our boys see that. So how can I? So that's the underlying thing. And you being 5'4", you want to do that for yourself, but at the same time, in that little boy's mind, I'm getting my mom.
Part. Or I'm just doing what I feel is my only way out. So,
Yeah.
in present day, you're currently running, what do you call it, a restaurant, a vegan restaurant?
Well, what we are is we're actually a ghost kitchen. We're inside of a facility with 17 other kitchens. And it works for me because we don't have a front house, we don't have a wait staff. You literally, and this particular, it's at Grand Food Depot. We're on 38th Street in between Grand and Hill. We're right around the corner from the Coliseum. And I chose this location because Bradley was at USC. And it's so funny, I moved into all of his, we researched the school and then we moved into the district. So it was just kismet. The universe knew that this is what I did. And when he chose USC, it was like, well, there's a kitchen right there that's self-contained and I don't have to see meat and I can service South LA. It's what's called a ghost kitchen, and it is the future of dining. So you order online, and then you just come pick up from the kitchen, and then the drivers, you either order delivery or takeout, but you don't order at the kitchen. You don't you have no interaction with the kitchen whatsoever. It's just all online. Somebody comes and picks it up and brings it to your house, and that's what we are. We're a ghost kitchen, and you order from us through jackfruitcafe.com.
And you would be considered a Black-owned business as well.
We are
How
a
has that
Black-owned business.
been, being a Black-owned business? There's a lot of stereotypes that come with it.
See, that's why I don't mess with Black businesses.
Right. Do you get that? Have you experienced it, and how do you combat that?
Let me just tell you this. We were on the West Side for 2 years. I started on Crenshaw, 6 months. I cohabitated a donut shop. It was a shared space, and we took it over. And they kicked us out after 6 months. TMZ came, the Times came, Eater LA put us on their essential list. 3 months out of the gate, we blew up. From there, I went to a food truck, and I stayed in the food truck for a year. And then this ghost kitchen facility on the West Side called me. And I'm thinking, oh, the West Side, there's money over there. Let me, this truck is kicking my ass. And as soon as they told me, it's literally, it's Uber Eats. When they told me the concept, I got it right away. We moved in, we started vending. It was beautiful. My rating was a 4.9 for 2 years on Google, 4.9. I had an opportunity to get a kitchen in the hood. I was going to keep both of them, but we were in the middle of an economic downturn. Employees were not coming back to work. We didn't have enough employees, so I gave up the West LA. I'm going to come serve my people. Within a month, our rating went from a 4.9 to a 4.
That hurt?
God, I was so heartbroken because it cost me $50,000 to move. And I was doing it for Black women to have more access, because I believe, as much as strong as black men are, I believe that women are the anchor. If women support black men can do anything. So the stronger a black woman is, who understands that she is holding this man up, the stronger we are as a community. So I came back to help Sister Girl, and boy, they did not give us a chance to find our legs. And when a restaurant opens up, we have to make mistakes. And some of the fucking reviews were so ridiculous. And I would respond with, give us a chance. Have our bags. Give me a call. Say, hey sis, this rice wasn't right. Hey sis, they burnt the bottom of this cookie. You think the owner literally burnt up the cookie and sent it out like, I got that motherfucker. That motherfucker pretty shit, that pretty cookie, I'm gonna hit it out and burn up.
The grace and all of this.
Where's the grace? Where's the support? We've watched all the videos on her. We know what she can do. She's telling us we don't have to take insulin. She's telling us how bomb the food is. Look at all these 5-star reviews, and then you're gonna bring your dumb ass in here with a 1-star over a piece of cornbread, over a burnt cookie. You're gonna blast it all over Instagram. Look what they did. This dude did 3 paragraphs, 3 long ass paragraphs, and I responded by saying, the young lady who packed that cookie for you did not do it with the same intent that you are doing with your post. Your posts are meant to harm a black business, which will in turn harm black economics in this city, in this state, in this nation, in this world. So if you don't help and support this little bitty kitchen that has already been in business 4 years. We couldn't have stayed in business for 4 years if we were the garbage that you're saying we are.
Do you think your celebrity has something to do with the intensity of?
I think it's my look. I think she looked like a little girl that hurt me in 3rd grade. I had such a crush on her in 3rd grade. I finally get to get that bitch back. I think it's my boyfriend like her. Listen to some of I don't want to put this sister on blast. Lonnie Love. I sat in the front of Lonnie Love shows and laughed my ass off. I greeted Lonnie Love with so much love and so much energy and so much passion, so much, you are the greatest. But Lonnie was looking at this. I won't say personally, but what I'm saying is that she has a problem with, in one of her interviews, she talked about how men aren't checking for her. They're checking for the exotic looking girl, the mixed girl. So because that is the mindset of a lot of women, got you, bitch. You didn't put my cornbread in my bag. 1 star. But in the back of her mind, my man would rather be with her. That's what that 1 star is for. Or that is a lot of variables. That's not just it. I'm not just saying it's jealousy or it's envy or it's you're looking at grass that's not greener because you're looking at the product of someone whose white father bounced. You got a beautiful black dad that came out on the porch with a shotgun on your first date. But you're gonna look at my hair and my skin color and say, she thinks she cute. No, I'm just trying to keep up. I'm just trying to fit in, sis. You ain't my sister. Yes, I am, bitch. Celebrity is part of it. Colorism is part of it. The mother that I am is part of it. It's a lot of it. And it's just people don't feel good about themselves. And hurt people hurt people. So to hurt a restaurant that we just opened, we literally just now got in the last month, we've been open a year. We've been open a year and we literally polished this system. I walk in that kitchen and I'm just like, we're here. Oh my God, we're here. If you could, our processes that drive our systems are beautiful. And we just got here. We just got here. We're working smarter now. We were working so hard in that kitchen. We were losing employees left and right. But I had to have a variety of menu because we like variety. And I had to have enough foods where our people would eat them on a regular basis, would want variety, would want to try different things. I've got a fish sandwich. You can't even tell it's not fish. I got shrimp. You can't even tell it's not shrimp. I have enough variety of food where it's like a dragnet. You're gonna try something on this menu. And you're gonna see that vegan food is not the what you've conceptualized it to be in your head. Vegan food is just food. I have seasoned this food with plants. I've seasoned it with the exact. We did something for Essence. We were over at the Holden Nate Holden Theater, and we brought a plate. We brought two identical plates. One was vegan. It was spaghetti with meat sauce, black eyed peas, and collard greens. One was real meat and one was not real. Three people were on the panel on the stage. They tasted both dishes, and then we said, hold up the dish that's meat. All three of them simultaneously held up my food. And they equated flavor with meat. And all three on stage, when I said that's mine, the entire audience gasped. And I told them all come over for samples. And the guy on the panel said, well, we thought it was meat because it tasted better. We are all flavor, no meat. I can't use that because it's my brother has a food spot that's called all flavor, no grease. But we are all flavor, no meat. Most of the time you don't even miss the meat.
Right.
I will put my black eyed peas up against Big Mama's every single day of the week, and you're gonna come back to and you're gonna go, oh, like
So,
Big Mama, Yellow Mama.
in closing, do we, I have to wrap us up. Um, but when I look at your life, your body of work, someone that was able to come make a mark in Hollywood, a lot of people seek that, and you were able to accomplish that. When we have children, we want our children to be successful. You were able to accomplish that. And now you're into the food industry, and I guess the fight is still kind of continuing, and maybe it's not is it where you want it to be? I'm sure.
Oh, definitely not. But to make it 5 years, we're celebrating our 5th year,
Fair.
and we have a deal. We're going to the freezer section of the grocery stores.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's
So
going
when all
down.
these things is happening, does Angela means, are you looking to ever come back to Hollywood?
Well, my son is making his mark. So if my child says, I wrote something I want you to do, Mom, that's a no-brainer. And I think that'll be kind of a cool story. This woman went off and made sure that this kid was okay. And let me tell you, his father was just as involved. I didn't do this by myself. It really was a village. And, along with the the friend that married my ex-husband, she was part of it. I had to make sure of that. But I follow my bliss. And when I get to heaven, and I will, because there is no hell, I'll be able to say, it's so corny, but I'll be able to say I don't have no more talents left. I used them all. And whether I go back in front of the camera or whether I'm behind the camera and get down, or whether I start building farms, whether I start building sanctuaries, whether I I become an author. I've got a book coming to the market right now. It's a fiction. I did this book on all the sevens that died in the 90s. That's a whole other conversation too. This book's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna scare a lot of people, and that we're in the final chapter. We've got all the book art. The website is being polished. So um, um, I'm just happy how I was raised because that's how I'm going to finish, a free bird. And my hard work, I bought my freedom, and I want to be an example for people. I want people to know that if something does not work out, and you know what you know in your heart what you're supposed to do, and you know what you're not supposed to do, and I want people to be okay with going down a lane that doesn't get as much attention, because that's where your bliss lies. That's where your glory lies. When you go through that little narrow gate that's hard to get through, you go through there and it's like, whoa. And you feel it with every cell of your body, because God, Steve Harvey talks about it a lot. Use your gifts. Don't deny yourself. Don't look next to you. That's a reason they put the blinders on the horses. Don't look next to you and see this other gorgeous woman who's doing her thing and she's in front of the camera. Don't do that. I have to follow my bliss. And if my bliss leads me to I might end up building chairs. And the exact same feeling that I got when I brought an audience to a frenzy, I got a standing ovation at the Apollo. There's no feeling like that in the world. There's a lot of very, very well-known comics who never will know what that feels like. I know what that feels like. I can draw on that at any given time. I know what it feels like to be a part of legend. People refer to me as a cultural icon. What else do I need in that space? So I know that feeling. I'm chasing that feeling of accomplishment. And I tell my team this: you can't succeed unless you know what it feels like when you accomplish something, and it's little bitty steps. So, all right, we got the office built. That feeling, that's a feeling that you have to have. So wherever that feeling comes from, whether it's a million people looking at me and applauding me, or whether it's just me and my 5-man team that I'm nurturing and I'm showing them about money, and I want you to be a millionaire too. That's rewarding. If I can make someone, this world is so huge. You know what? I can go into heating and cooling. I can start selling. I can start selling. I can start showing people how to fix their credit. I can be like Prada Jones, and I can show people how to become wealthy. I can show people. I can do anything, and it will give me the same feeling of accomplishment. That's what I'm chasing. I'm not chasing your approval. I'm not chasing their approval, because if I was, I would have listened to Chris Tucker on the set when he said, "Hey, ain't you gonna do it? Hey, ain't you gonna?" No, I'm doing this.